I'm Tanya Fox, and you're listening to Fox Talks Business Podcast. I started my career in the corporate world, but always played to my own tune and loved to think outside of the box. This didn't always serve me well with the bosses, so I made the decision to become an entrepreneur. And that little seed of entrepreneurial curiosity continued to grow as I branched out into retail, service, and franchise businesses. Now, I have been fortunate to have amazing successes in the last 2 decades, but they did not come without some really big failures and even bigger lessons learned. And that's why I started this podcast, not just to share the failures, but to show you how you can turn every failure into a success. We're going to hear from some amazing humans from around the world that are going to share their stories of the good, the bad, and the motivational entrepreneurial life has to offer. After all, life is too short to make all of the mistakes yourself, so why not learn from each other? And of course, we're going to have some fun, because as I always say, well, you know what? I'll tell you that at the end of the episode. How happy are you? And what habits do you have? How many of those habits are not serving you? We're going to be diving into these questions and more with Laura DiBenedetto. So thank you so much for coming on the show today, Laura. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Truly a pleasure. Thanks for having me here.
So you wrote a book called The 6 Habits, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but tell us a little bit about your story of how this book came to be, because it's quite an interesting sort of progression of how you got to that point.
Sure. I started a business at 19. I had no clue what I was doing. And for years, I worked probably a lot harder than I had to. I always chased the awards, the money, the success, and I burnt myself out, like in a really profound way. And when I kind of like arrived, I guess, it all felt so hollow and meaningless because I had never actually invested the right things in myself. So I guess a couple of years ago, I finally felt sufficiently empty and upset about that to do something about it, look into what is happiness really? Where did I miss the mark? Like, clearly I didn't get the memo on the real recipe for happiness. What is it? And then, of course, how can I create it for myself? Because it's not money. It's not all the awards. It's not the fancy house. It's none of those things. They're nice to have, but they don't give us the true kind of internal happiness that carries us through the hard moments, that keeps us warm when we're sad, that helps us bounce back and really just have like a baseline level of satisfaction with our life. So that's really where the origin of the whole project and the book came from.
And I think it's so, it's so true that as entrepreneurs go out, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners know this, is you sort of get this pie-eyed look of what entrepreneurship is about. And, you see the glory of it all. It's going to be great. It's like those people who open a bar and they're like, it's going to be great. I'm just going to sit and I'm going to drink with people. It's going to be so much fun. So what was your sort of wake up moment of going, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be like?
Well, it's so funny. I'd had so many like signs, from universe, God, whatever you believe, or even just fate, just be like, yo, hello, this is not what it's supposed to be. Of course, I ignored them all because I'm stubborn. But it was like burnout, exhaustion. I wanted to leave the company I'd spent 20 years building. And that's crazy because I love my company. I'm like so proud of it. And once I healed, I fell back in love and all that other stuff. But the wake up call was just a really huge career achievement, like really huge, that felt like nothing. And it was like, what's next? And it just felt like just another day in the office. I'm like, oh, that's weird because I should be stoked, but I don't care.
Yeah.
Something's wrong, And this was happening at the same time that my new marriage was on the rocks and falling apart. I was fighting with my friends and family. They were not getting the best of me. In fact, the worst. I had been sick for 3 years, didn't know what was wrong. It was getting worse. And I just didn't care about anything. And I just kind of had that moment where I was like staring at the wall because I was so depressed. I was like, something's really messed up here. What did I miss? Because this is not what I wanted. It was just like a moment where I was so depressed that literally I stared at the wall for days and just being so beaten down by a life that I designed. To be clear, I designed it. It's nobody's fault except my own. I never looked at it. I just did the things I thought I was supposed to do. And it caught up with me eventually.
And I think we hear that so much because there's, so many times I hear from entrepreneurs that they go, I should be happy at this point. Like you had said, you had
Yeah.
felt like I have everything that they say you're supposed to have. I have the money, I have the accolades, I have everything. And it's not. It's not
Yeah.
fulfilling. So you keep, I think a lot of entrepreneurs get to that point where they keep pushing, right? Okay, well, maybe I need more. Maybe, it's the thrive. And then you sort of get stuck in almost like this hamster wheel of always
Mhm.
trying to do something bigger and better. So
Yeah, maybe I'll be happy after the next award. Or you know what?
right.
Maybe when I close that sale that's like 2 times larger than I normally close. Or maybe when I add that new person, then I'll be happy. And you're not even consciously thinking this stuff. I wasn't. I was always like, oh, well, there's a goal and it's always out of reach. So I just have to keep pushing and I have to keep doing this. And it's like momentum for the sake of momentum. That's not great.
I think that is a key thing that entrepreneurs get stuck in is momentum for the sake of momentum, is that you're always supposed to be moving forward. You're always supposed to
Yeah.
be growing. You're always supposed to have, you hear it so much, like, what are your goals? What are you planning on doing? And you're like, oh God, I got to think of something new. Like I just achieved this. But instead of enjoying it, now I have to think of something else because somebody's going to ask me. So how did you sort of transition out of that? What things, like, you decided, okay, something is wrong, I need to fix this. How did you figure, like, what was your first step to fixing that or finding out what was actually wrong?
Well, this is the wonderful part about being an entrepreneur. I know how to problem solve like a boss. But once I had to identify that, oh, hey, there's actually a problem here, right? So I did that. I never wanted to like give in to depression. But I'm actually really glad that I did. I gave in. I gave in to feeling like a loser, feeling like I had messed up, and I gave in to all of it. And I just let all of like the despair of like, why is it never enough? What is wrong? Wash over me. And as an entrepreneur, I fought that for years. I didn't want to feel that way. I was like, no, 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 no. I'm going to win another award. And you know what? Like, yeah, it matters what people think of me. And as long as other people think I'm great, and you know what? I'll get that fancy handbag and I'll have the really fancy car and the beautiful home. Um, the as a type A, like really hardcore entrepreneur, I think a lot of people listening will really, really identify with this. I don't do surrender real easy. I don't. It's like, no, 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 never, never, never go down without a fight. Like
Yeah.
never. Um, but I was so depressed, I kind of just gave up, right? And I gave up trying, and I gave up just the madness of chasing a cycle of highs and emotional lows, because that's all I had ever really chased for years. And I thought I was chasing happiness, but I was just chasing emotional highs. Because when we achieve anything, we get an emotional high from it. We pursue, we achieve, we get it, yay, and then it wears off. And here's this truth: if you're married, at some point you get frustrated with your spouse. The shine wears off. At some point, you're like, when you have a baby, oh my God, when they take their first steps and then they're running around like a little mad person, you're like, would you stop it?
Who taught
Like,
you how to walk?
yeah, it's
That
like,
was dumb.
go back in the womb. You're awful, right? It's like at some point the shine from anything wears off. So I just kind of had this major like surrender moment where I just sat in the crappy feeling. I just sat with it. And believe it or not, like I'd love to tell you that this was like a big thing where I engineered all of it, but a lot of it I feel like was kind of given to me by the grief of the experience, by the surrender, by universe, God, whomever. Just the clarity of realizing you're an entrepreneur, Laura. You need to go solve this problem. You need to find out, what is happiness? How can it be created? What's it going to look like for you? Because you're stubborn. Because I am. And I needed to actually do a research project. So that's where the book came from. I decided to do a research project, answer those questions. I started like researching happiness, what happy people have in common, where the origin of happiness really is. And what I found was that happiness is abundant in people that had 6 core thought patterns. And that kind of blew my mind. I also found that like happy things are not the source of happiness, but they're actually the result of happiness. Like, so great example. I live on the island of Maui. I didn't move here thinking it would make me happy. I got happy and then I moved here because I was happy, right? It was the other way around. So just all this revelatory stuff was really huge. I was like, whoa, that's amazing. So, but it was like the 6 thought patterns or mental habits that like was like, wow, huh. So if all these people that are actually happy, you can tell just from the outside that they do these things in their head, I wonder if I could acquire these habits too. I wonder. So I started looking into the science of habit, and I say this as the CEO of a marketing company. Marketers lie. Okay. It's terrible, but it's true. And lots of people would have you believe that habits can be created in 21 days or 30 days or whatever neatly fits into whatever feels good to the listener to, coax money out of their pocket. But I actually discovered the real truth of it. Science says that real habits actually take at least 66 days to form. So I created a 90-day, I guess, kickstart my new life program for myself. I was like, all right, well, how do you acquire a new habit? You do it. It's like flossing. How do you force yourself to floss? Do you affirm your way into it? Do you meditate your way into flossing?
Sit there and
Shanti,
imagine yourself flossing.
floss. No, you just floss. You just do it, right? So it was like, well, how do I do these 6 things? I just had to live in it. And so for 90 days, I started when it got really uncomfortable and weird. I just lived at the peak expression of each of these 6 mental habits. And it was awkward as hell at first, really awkward. Because I'd have to accept stuff about myself. I'd have to really be nice to me when I hadn't been. It was like, oh, I feel like a fraud, but I did it anyway. And, that's the thing about, all these habits that I found is you can learn them easily. You just got to want it. It's kind of like flossing. Like the dentist will always say, do you only floss the teeth you'd like to keep? Kind of the same thing when it comes to the habits. Hey, only work on the habits you'd like to acquire because you can choose misery. I did that for years. But if you actually change the way you encounter the world and move about within it, that changes you. That changes your life. That changes how your relationships go. It changes how much you can sell, whether or not you get burnt out at work, whether or not you're a grumpy bitch the way I used to be, which I don't recommend. Grumpy bitch, not a good program.
And I loved the book because I really found that it made me sort of change my thought pattern because like you were saying, all of the other, there's tons of other programs out there. Like, oh, if you wake up at 5 a.m. and you do these 3 things. And I was like, it just doesn't work for me. But it was really about changing the way I thought about where I was right now, and reminding me that nothing is ever going to be good enough if I don't find good in where I am right now. So
Yeah.
that was the biggest lesson out of it for me.
Well, I'm so glad that you got that. And we talked about this in the green room. Love where you are is written on the wall behind you.
Yes.
Like sometimes what we need is a perspective shift. And the way we view ourselves, the world, everything in situations, it's all perspective. And I think, you would agree, having read the book, it's so much of it is perspective, how you view yourself, what happens in your life, living in a snowstorm, being happy about it or not. You can choose. It's kind of like those choose your own adventure books from the 80s. Yeah. Remember those?
I do.
I used to love mine. But the thing about those is you can truly choose your experience. And you mentioned something that I really want to touch on. So many people that love my book usually mention what it doesn't have. And there's a sense of relief from what it doesn't have. It's not littered with spiritual mumbo jumbo. I believe in that stuff. There's a place for it, just not with me. But it's very practical. And it's also, people are like, oh, well, you don't give me a list of crap I need to complete before 5 a.m. You're right, I don't. I'm not telling you to chug a gallon of celery juice every morning or meditate on your pillow. You can do those things. But what I'm talking about is it's both simpler and more difficult at the same time, because I'm talking about the place that those things originate from. Why would you have celery juice every morning? I hear it's very good for you. I've had some. It tastes like salt in a glass.
It's horrible.
If you drink celery juice, God bless you. You got a better palate than me. But it's not the celery juice. It's why we do it. It's why we get on the meditation pillow. It's why we go to the gym. It's why we actually affirm ourselves and say kind things to ourselves. It's why we set up boundaries. It's why we do that stuff. It's not that we do it. It's why we do it. And I think that's the thing that kind of sets us free here, is there's no prescription of things, little rituals you got to do. I hate rituals.
Well,
You know, I'm an
and
entrepreneur, I like every day being different.
yeah. And I think that was the thing too, is that I found that it was more, I could envelop it more in the lifestyle that I lead, as opposed to trying to change my entire life to match, this program, because then it doesn't stick, right? Then you're just like, oh my God, how am I going to rearrange, so that I make sure that I'm, reading
Yes.
for 15 minutes, that I'm doing this, that I'm doing
Right.
that. It really wasn't, it was much easier to do because I needed my brain. I could do it anywhere. I wasn't like, oh gosh, I have to be, facing north in the sun in the middle of a field at 5. We got to go. or, or I am
Make
not
sure
going to
you,
find happiness.
hop on one foot 3 times at least when you're done. Make sure.
Yeah. And it
Um,
was the simplicity in it. But, I know that you had talked about it in too, that, and I would love for you to go, through what the 6 habits are. Just briefly. I mean, I encourage people to read the book to get more in depth in it. But you talk a lot too about how, they sound so easy, but it's the application of them that
Right.
people stumble on a lot. So can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, I really would. And that's really valuable. Thank you. I'll tell you what they are, and then I'm going to give you the disclaimer after, right? And just for anyone listening, stay tuned for the disclaimer because you're going to laugh because I'm going to basically repeat your thoughts back to you. The habits are kindness to yourself, acceptance of yourself, gratitude for all that's in your life, especially the hard stuff and the things we take for granted, presence in all of our moments, goodness, which is energy management and inviting good in and repelling bad, and intention in all that we do. Here's the disclaimer, and me basically spitting your thoughts back at you. Wow, they sound so obvious. Duh. Why'd you write a book about that? I'm not going to read it. Right? Like everybody thinks that. And like the crazy part is, like, when I was even doing the research for this book, I felt like I was being slammed in the face by the universe with a tennis racket to the face. It was like, duh. It was so much duh, right? But it's not so much the words themselves, because they're not new concepts. We've all been hearing these words before. You've heard the word kindness. It's the way we actually execute it and actually regard it. So most people automatically, you hear the word kindness, you think of, oh, that's how I treat others. You think of like giving a homeless guy $1 or 2 or buying him a sandwich, right? That's what we think of when we think of kindness. We don't actually think of it as the thoughts of love, the words of love, the actions of love, to ourselves from ourselves. We don't think of it that way. So number 1, it's a perspective shift, but number 2, it's actually the application. And this is where it gets difficult. The concepts, thank God they're easy, right? But as you saw, there's about 1 million invitations in the book to go get all the free stuff that goes with it, because applying these things is hard. So in like a month, I'm going to be 40. I have feelings about this, but I'm going to be 40. And you know what I had for 38 years? I had 38 years of practice of being unkind to myself. I developed such badassery with being unkind to myself. Yeah, takes a minute to undo that and actually unlearn it and reshape my thinking. So kindness is now my default. I don't look in the mirror when I've got eye bags from not sleeping really well and being like, oh my God, you look like a troll. I don't do that. I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh, honey, we got to get you in bed earlier next time, And I speak to myself with love the way I would want my mom to talk to me, the way I'd want my husband to talk to me when I've had a bad day. Like, I got to do that for me. And it took a while to like actually change my internal monologue, the things I do for myself, the way I actually talk to myself. And yes, girl, I will be in my car mumbling to myself down the road. I look like I'm on the phone. I'm not. It's just me hanging out with me. But like, we all do that. Don't deny it. It's definitely one of those things where we always assume that it's going to be easy, right? And this is the thing that I really want to invite everyone listening. When we assume that it's easy because the words are easy, what we do is we set ourselves up for challenge when it comes to applying them. You're like, oh, kindness is so easy, right? Then you go to apply it and you discover it's really hard. And you know what happens? When you framed it as easy and then you discover that it's not, you've actually set yourself up for failure, because you've made it so anything other than easy is a shameful outcome. So then you don't even try. People give up before they start. However, if you frame it as, you know what? I spent 38 years or 40 or 50 years being a master at unkindness. It's going to be difficult, but I can do it. I know I can do it. If I could learn to be unkind, I can unlearn that and learn to be kind. And this will be a challenge. And if you tell yourself out of the gate, this is not going to be easy, but I can do it, then you're actually setting yourself up for success because you are acknowledging this will be harder than you think. You're prepared for it. You're ready to take it on. Yes, it's simple. Absolutely. It's super simple. Thank God, because otherwise no one would understand it. Can you imagine if it was complicated and difficult? No one would do it.
Yeah.
But it's simple. And it's only difficult because we just have to unlearn it. And it's uncomfortable and awkward. Like, you want to get into one of the habits. Let's talk about kindness, right? So kindness is, thoughts, words, and actions of love to ourselves, from ourselves. Sounds great. But the unkindness, it shows up in the entrepreneurial universe as, you know what, this is what you say to yourself. Don't ask for the $10,000 for that. Only ask for 8 because they're not going to go for it. It sounds like, don't wear that. You gained weight over the quarantine. It makes you look fat. Don't do that. You're not going to make that sale. Don't ask for that raise that would actually help you to really fully be independent. Don't do this, or, your husband's going to be mad at you for working this many hours. You better say you're sorry, or, your kids are really upset with you right now. It's this constant drain and narrative of negative self interaction. It's not just talk, but it's thoughts. It's like, even the silent, there's no words, there's even no conscious thought, even the silence avoidance of making a cold call. We all do it. Okay. It's awkward. It sucks. Nobody wants to do it, but it's the silence and it's the thoughts that dictate the fear behind it. And the fear says, I don't want to fail. I don't want to fail. Okay. And then every time we're like, yeah, I'm not going to make that call. I don't want to fail. Screw that.
Yeah. They're just going to say no. And yeah.
Right. That's us being unkind. But when we're being kind, we can be like, hey, fear, I see you. Also, you're not correct. Shut up. I can do this. It might be uncomfortable, but I can do uncomfortable. I can do this. I'm an entrepreneur. Damn it. I can do anything. It looks like, you know what? I am going to ask for that $10,000 because it's worth that. And that will make me happy. And I'll feel better about providing this result. You know what? I deserve to have this client treat me better. I'm going to say something. Or, you know what? I have to work hard for my family right now. And this is what's needed. And I'm going to pour a little extra love on my marriage right now, but I know I'm making the right decision. So it shows up differently. And these thoughts, we can force ourselves to have them, but that's the beginning of it. The more you force yourself to do it over and over and over, it's just like flossing. You got to force yourself to do it, sometimes set a timer, an alarm, or whatever. Then it becomes automatic, comfortable, and easy. And then ultimately you become the person through enough diligence to be like, automatically, yeah, I'm going to cold call, whatever. No big deal.
Yeah.
So I was doing a TED talk, right? And I had a location lined up. It got weird. And then the location fell through. And I had to cold call a bunch of real estate agents on the island. Hi, can I borrow your client's $13 million home? And you have no idea who the hell I am, or you have no incentive to help me. Would you interested? That was awkward.
But I think that these are, they're such good skills to have, because it's not something that you're just going to do. And then you're going to be like, oh, look, I know all of them. Here we go. Because like even you had said about, turning 40, there's always stuff that are going to creep up that you're like, which by the way, I hit 40 like 3 years ago, and it's the same as 39. just to let you know, not too much changes. But it's that constant learning of getting used to that. And what I found was the most difficult is the one that I've been trying the most, is really being, conscious of what negativity I'm letting into my life. So, and it comes to, that I was sitting there going, I really don't, and I had to have this conversation with my husband, because of course he'd come home from work and I'm the one that he like verbally tells everything that he would have liked to say to everybody, but couldn't. So I get it all. And I had to like go, you know what? I just don't, you have to stop talking. It's just too much negativity right now. I need to go watch something funny or whatever. And I would take that 5 minutes to go and like cheer myself back up and then come back and go, okay, I can listen, I can be there for you, but really being like more conscious of going, okay, I'm starting to take this all internally. Like I was taking his stress, I was taking
Wow.
his, you know, his negativity and going, okay, just give me a second. Let me get myself set back up in positivity again. And then I can come back and I can still help you. And that was a big tool for me, because before I would take it all in, I would internalize it. What would I do? How could I help him? And then all of a sudden his stress became my stress. So he was like, oh, I feel great. And I'm like, this is horrible. So that was a really big lesson that, you know, that I got from
This is
reading the book.
amazing. I'm
So,
so glad. And, I think, so what you're talking about is boundaries, right? And I
mhm.
think people, perceive, and you probably read throughout the book, what boundaries are not. Boundaries are
Yeah,
not bad. Boundaries are not a screw you to the other person. Just boundaries just mean these are the rules of engagement.
yeah.
That's all.
And
You
not
can treat
feeling,
me this way and you
yeah.
can't treat me that way. That's it.
And not feeling, you know, I think the biggest thing for me was, you know, the realization of, because I set a boundary, it's not like I'm dictating to people, you will not do this to me. It was just being accepting of, no, that's not okay for me, you know, and thank you,
Yeah.
but, you know, have a good
Well,
day.
you became aware of its impact on you. And you know what? I
Right.
know this doesn't mean you love your husband any less. It doesn't mean you want to be here there for him like any less. It just means that you're finally aware of the price you pay in absorbing all of that negativity, and you're doing a better job now of being like, okay, I love you and I need a minute so I can really show up for you, and so I don't deplete myself at the same time. So you're
Yeah.
changing the way you're there for them, there for him, in a way that actually is allowing him to unload and for you to stay intact.
Yeah. And I think
Girl,
that's
that's
a,
huge.
oh, it was so huge. It was so huge for me. So I thank you for that.
Yay.
But
You're
that
welcome.
that was a big thing for me, because I think as entrepreneurs we do that, and especially when, you know, when that's it, we're at the top, we're doing it ourselves, is we take all of this stuff in. And I was doing that. I had gotten myself into the bad habit of taking everything in and not, you know, almost building that wall of going, okay, hang on, you don't have to take all of this on. I can listen and not absorb. Like I can be there. You can just be a sounding wall and whatever. I mean, I just play a song in my head that is my happy song while someone's telling me something, so that I don't take on all of their stress. I still want
Good.
to be there for him. And I
Yeah.
still, you know, want to be there for the people that, you know, need that and need to vent, but I'm not taking the problems on myself, which is a
Amen,
bad
girl.
habit.
Yeah, it is a habit, and it's a mental habit, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the habit you had acquired for, like, 40, probably 42 years. You were like living in the habit of, okay, you have a need, and even if it comes as a cost to me, I'm going to meet your need. Now it's like, I'm going to meet your need, but in a way that doesn't actually injure me.
Yeah,
And it's not even like
exactly.
I'm not going to meet your need. It's like, now I'm going to do it on my terms, which feels better.
Well, and the great thing about it is, even, you know, in the, you know, it's just been weeks that I've been implementing this. I've been seeing the change in other people as well. So what they come and
Ah,
talk to me about is different. And I don't even think it's intentional, but they're starting, you know, I'm starting to see the change. And of course I see it more with my family, is that they're
sure.
coming with other stories, different things, the good things, because it's almost becoming a habit of, that's just what we talk about, and it's brightening up their lives as well. So those boundaries I've set for myself are also helping others. So that was like, I'm like, oh, I don't have to feel guilty about this. I'm actually helping you by setting my own boundaries.
I love that. And I think a lot of people always feel like boundaries will actually ruin relationships, and what you're talking about is the thing that I've been trying to get people to understand for a long time. Boundaries actually make relationships better because they let people know where the walls are, so they don't bump up against them, and they actually teach people how to treat you. What you've basically said to your family is, guys, I need more positive energy. And maybe you haven't even proactively used those words, but guess what? They read between the lines. Guess what? They're bringing you more positive energy because you that made a rule within yourself that it's like, this doesn't work for me, but you know what does? Let's do this instead. And your family probably is enjoying how it feels.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the benefit goes far beyond even our own selves without even realizing it. Because I was
Yeah.
really in it just for me.
I mean, hey, listen, I say this is the author of the book. I was in this 100% just me, that's it. But like, I wrote the book because the 90-day program was such like a absolute unbelievable like life changer for me. So I built the 90-day program to share with other people, but the whole reason why I wrote the book was so I could just share the wisdom with, actually, believe it or not, just my friends. I was like, let me just write a few paragraphs. Haha, here's a whole book. Just kidding. I wasn't intending to write a book. I just wanted to change my life in a way that worked. And I was so tired of being told to, okay, meditate every morning and spend an hour exercising and do this. I'm like, I don't want to. I just want to feel better. Like, what's the shortcut, yo? Like, help me out. I'm lazy. So listen, I'm going to say this. I've been saying this for years. You want to find the best way to do anything? Ask a lazy person, because they know the path of least resistance. They know.
Yeah, they'll get it done fast. That's so true.
Right.
So I know
I'm
there's
the CLP of my world, chief lazy person.
I love that. So there's probably some people that are out there that are like, well, I think I'm happy, but I don't know. And you've sort of developed a quiz that people can take. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I would love to. So I think that we assume that we're happier than we are. And I did this for years. I was like, oh yeah, I've got the house, I've got the money, I've got this and that. And happiness is not necessarily where we think it is, not necessarily what or where, right? And when we can actually determine our true happiness, that's when we're empowered to do something with it and really like have that awakening that we need to have a different life. You know, we get the invitation to like really find true happiness. So I developed a quiz because I want people to be able to see the writing on the wall and hopefully not go through what I went through. It's free. You can go to the6habits.com. It's THESIX habits.com. You can take the quiz and you can see how happy you really are once you strip away the layers. It's an easy quiz. It'll take you like 3 minutes and see where you stand, and then you can figure out what you want to do from there.
So once people have figured that out, you also have a 90-day program that you have. Tell us a little bit about what that entails.
Sure. So the way that I actually recommend that people get exposed to the 6 habits, I really recommend that people read the book first. When you read the book, it really kind of sets you up for massive success. You can actually bypass it and do the 90-day program first. It's really substantial. But you can even get it as an audiobook and put it on double speed, and it's only 3 hours. Like you can, there's no excuse. Like do it when you're like in the shower or something. Right. But like, it's one of those things where if you read the book, you get the knowledge and it's like, oh, you have your epiphanies, you do all the free exercises or even some of them, just the ones that really pertain to you. Then the 90-day exercise, it's all built to help you get out of your own way. Cause baby, I am so familiar and I am an absolute boss at being in my own way. Of all the things I've been good at in my life, that's probably chief among them. So that's why I built this thing, because, you know, you got to figure out like how to start implementing these habits into your life. So I walk you through exactly, this is how you do it. This is when you do it. This is, you know, I want you to keep track of your wins. This is how you're going to catalog things. We're going to check in weekly. This is how you're feeling. What are you experiencing? And the cool part is anyone that does this whole 90-day experience, like I did, and like so many of my clients have done, you start seeing crazy, like, oh my God, wow, look at the power of this right in the first week. You start to feel the crazy effects. And I remember I actually kept a journal the entire time I was doing my first 90-day experience. I did a couple just because I wrote the book. I should. And I remember I had a journal. I was like, day 8. Oh my God, major breakthrough. Wow. Like day 10. Holy crap. I can't believe this happened. Day 11. Wow. I can't believe I just completely healed that relationship that's been broken for 5 years. Day 42, decided to like pick up my whole family and move to an island. Like the way you feel when you actually start to live in the habits way before they're actually habitual, like it's the program itself, it builds the desire to really truly keep going and actually acquire these mental habits and change the way you think. So it's pretty epic. It's available on the 6habits.com as well. And I gotta tell you, like, I'm a stubborn human, and I think I met my match. I married my match. He may actually be the most stubborn human that has ever walked among us. And if that stubborn AH can actually do the program and get powerful results and quit being, you know, a pain in the tushy, and be the man he always wanted to be, I know there's hope for literally every human out there, because just like me, he makes excuses. Things are harder. I can't do this. Negative self-talk. Oh, this is hard. Ugh. But he did it, and he finally got to meet the man he always wanted to be. And that was pretty epic. It was like, I know what I can do, but like, damn.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to sit with us and, share all of your knowledge. I do encourage people. I got so much more than even I could describe in this interview out of reading the book, and so many epiphanies, and even just like there's so many tools that are in the book that you can use right away, and just to even change even 1% of the way you think about stuff. It feels like 100% when you're doing it. Like I said, even just changing the way I allow negativity in my life. So that is totally worth it.
Hearing that. That's like goosebump stuff. But that's the goal. Like, even if I make your life 1% better, it's worth it. It's so worth it, because life is long and big and can be hard, or it can be better. And if 1% changes your life for the better, great, do it. So yeah, thank you so much for being able to chat with you and talk about this, and also just for reading the book and like really believing in the power of it and putting it to use in your life. I'm so grateful that you're actually seeing powerful effects from it already. That makes me happy.
I know. And I'm excited to even, delve in even more so to some of the things and see how much farther I can go. So we'll definitely keep people posted. So if people are interested in learning more about this, finding more about you, connecting with you, what's the best place for them to go?
The best place for them to go is if you go to the6habits.com, you can take the quiz, find out about the book, the whole world of the 6 habits, even watch my TED talk. But yeah, it's the sixhabits.com. Check it out. Come hang with me. Make your life better.
Thank you again, Laura.
Thank you.
I encourage you all to take a moment to head to the6habits.com and take the free quiz where you can find out instantly, how happy are you really? I think you might all be surprised. And as always, head to our website at foxtalksbusiness.ca, click on blogs at the top of the page. You'll see this episode with all of the ways that you can connect with Laura to start your 6 habits. If you could also take a moment to leave us a review wherever you listen to our podcast, I would be so grateful. And as always, feel free to email me with your guest ideas, as well as those subjects you want us to dive into. And no matter what you're doing today, whether you're starting a new habit or continuing on in the 6 that you're creating for yourselves, remember to take some time to have fun. Because if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?